The first thing to disappear wasn't our house. It was our numbers. At 2:11 a.m., a patrol car drifted down Larkspur Trace like it was sweeping an empty stage. The beam washed over our porch, rails, flower pots, the brass 403 I'd centered with a level the day we moved in, and then slid past us as if light couldn't catch. I stood on the steps in a t-shirt, barefoot, feeling the boards under my feet and the cold through the wood, and raised my hand. "Officer," I said. "We're the ones who called," the radio crackled. The officer didn't look at me. He looked through me, past me, the way you glance through a window at your own reflection and don't notice it's there. His partner angled a tablet toward the windshield. "Dispatch," the driver said into the mic, calm as a church greeter. "I've got nothing on Larkspur. Address not on file. Cul-de-sac's clear." Behind me, the door opened a breath. "Mark," Ava whispered. "The thermostat's gone." Her face was too pale in the porch light. She held up her phone. The smart home app showed our living room at 68 degrees, but the thermostat icon was an empty outline. No device found. On the wall inside, the paint was an oval of cleaner white where the unit had been. Like a bandage pulled off and the skin forgotten underneath. "Dispatch," the partner repeated. Scrolling the tablet, no such address. He spun the screen for me. Google's map showed our cul-de-sac like a white ring with 9 slices, driveways neat as pie cuts. Lot 7, ours, was a tan smear labeled undeveloped. Our mailbox, HOA color WR stone, ordered from the approved vendor, stood at the curb with the red flag raised like a tongue in the dark. I opened the door to prove a point. Inside there was nothing. Not junk, not bills, nothing. My flashlight fell into the cavity and didn't bounce. It felt like shining into a throat. I stepped into the cruiser's headlights, not to be dramatic, but to put my body in the frame of whatever record they were making. "We have a deed," I said. "We closed in July. My son's asleep upstairs." I pointed to Jonah's window. The nightlight glowed behind it, but the light didn't spill. It pooled, like something breathing in a jar. Across the intersection, the green street sign was a blank. Yesterday, it had said Larkspur Trace. Now it was just enamel and holes where screws once held letters. No paint, no scrapes. Like the name had been lifted off the metal and the metal didn't mind. The officer's partner zoomed the satellite tile in and out. No house, no name. Only rule clean geometry. The driver raised the loudspeaker. "Ma'am, sir," he said, speaking into the night like you talk to a dog on a highway, gentle and non-committal. "If you feel unsafe, you can come down to the station and file a report." "We live here," I said. It surprised me how small my voice came out. I grabbed the door, swung it wide so they could see the foyer. Our shoes lined up under the table. The black and white photo of my parents on the day they closed on their first place. The runner Ava picked in a compromise that made both of us feel like we'd won. "Everything real. Everything solid, Dad." Jonah's voice floated from the top of the stairs, coin small. "The hallway picture looks weird." The officer lifted his flashlight. For half a heartbeat, I thought he saw us. He squinted at the tablet again instead, and the light moved on. And he spoke into the radio in that same breakfast menu tone. "Clear, nothing here. If you're watching this somewhere familiar, a couch, a kitchen table, your own quiet street, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And if this story keeps you with me, if you catch yourself checking your porch light before bed, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Now let me take you back to the start, when everything still had a name. We closed in July, heat that made the horizon look like it was thinking. Willow Ridge was the kind of place somebody designed with a ruler and a good childhood. Identical black lanterns at the ends of driveways, lawns shaved like velvet, a community pool shaped like a comma, so the neighborhood could breathe. The HOA welcome packet came in a white binder with embossed gold, Willow Ridge Homeowners Association, and a letter from the president, Linda Harrow, whose signature had loops that said she sent a lot of letters. I work in IT. I noticed fonts. Ava read bylaws. I flipped to Appendix E and lost my mind. "Approved address number fonts," I said, holding the laminated sheet like a trophy. "Willow Serif. They invented a font for our street." Jonah ran through bare rooms with a cardboard sword, naming them with the authority of a 7-year-old. The reading room. The Lego room. The room where we build a fort so big we email NASA for permission. The first violation notice arrived 3 days later, handwritten in perfect willow serif Dear Resident, at 403 Larkspur Trace. Welcome, Pier Covenant Par 3.2.7. All address numbers must be brass, 4 inches tall. Centered above the door between 3 and 4 p.m. to avoid sun glare alignment. Your numbers are off-center by approximately 1 inch. Kindly correct within 7-7. Days to avoid fine. Warm regards, Linda Harrow. We centered the numbers. A week later, we were cited for leaving our trash bins visible 43 minutes past the window. We appealed. The board upheld the fine with the casual indifference of a traffic light. Rules? Our neighbor Paul told me, expression neutral as a slab. Keep things nice. He pronounced nice like it required 3 syllables and a permit. For every slap on the wrist, there was a casserole of kindness, a welcome basket with scones, a 4th of July bike parade, a community Facebook group that enforced civility with such zeal. It felt like an HOA for words. Our mailbox was the right color. Our porch light matched the cross-street fixtures, as specified in Appendix E. Ava's hydrangeas made the newsletter under a caption that read, "A model of compliance." The sameness was the point. The sameness sang you to sleep. The first odd thing came on a Thursday in September, a week after Labor Day. Doorbell. A guy with a company polo and sunline sunglasses smiled an apology he hadn't earned. "Evening," he said. "I'm here to remove the sign." "What sign?" I asked. He pointed above my head. "Your address." Across the street, 2 guys on ladders were unscrewing brass numbers from 405 and 409, dropping them into felt pouches like jewelers. In their place, they affixed blank plates that didn't reflect light so much as fuse it. The tech checked a tablet, glanced up, took a photo, frowned. "Huh," he said. "Work order says 407. New software." He tipped his cap at Jonah, who had appeared behind my leg with a magnifying glass and all the gravity in the world. "Appreciate the assist, detective," he told him and went away. That night, we found a maple and maple tag zip-tied to our mailbox flag, verified with a QR code. It was odd, but Willow Ridge was made of odd if you stared at it straight. 2 days later, a package from Ava's sister bounced with a red stamp. No such address. We laughed about Narnia and wardrobes. She resent. It arrived scraped in a way that made the ink look like it had tried to leave without hurting the paper. The HOA mailed an audit in a gold envelope. Annual records verification. Please confirm homeowners. Parcel, mailing address, service address. We filled it out at the breakfast bar between coffee and oranges. Homeowners, Mark and Ava Fielding. Parcel, WR7. Mailing 403 Larkspur Trace. Service, same. I licked the flap. The slot took the envelope and made a sound like swallowing. Monday we got a thank you note. Our records now reflect. Residence none, parcel WR7, undeveloped. If an error has occurred, contact your HOA liaison. We went to see Linda. Her door was WR frost white with a wreath that looked like an idea of autumn. She had the smile of a person who uses complicated as a synonym for tedious. I handed her the audit response. "We exist," I said, trying to keep it a joke. "New software," she said, and it sounded like prayer. Sometimes, if there's a mismatch with the county parcel database, it defaults to undeveloped. I'll escalate. She CC'd us on an email to a tree of titles. Compliance, records, community liaison. 5 minutes later, a reply came from recordswillowridge.org. Click here to verify you are a human. I clicked. An empty box loaded. It hummed. At the pool, a visor lady with the tired grace of someone who had chaired too many committees asked which street we rented on. "We bought," Ava said. "Which street?" "Larkspur." The visor smiled in a way that wasn't. "Beautiful lot," she said. "Lot on the 1st of October. The county sent a property tax statement that charged us $0.0. No new taxes on undeveloped land," it chirped, with a cartoon tree. "If this seems incorrect, contact your HOA." A power company rep called to confirm the termination of temporary service to the new build on parcel WR7. I put her on speaker. "We've been living here 3 months," I said. "There is a kid upstairs who can find the bathroom by touch." "Sir," she said with a voice like a blanket, "I'm just looking at what the system says." October 12th. The street name vanished from the sign. 2 nights later, the patrol car. You know that part. The beam sliding off our porch. The officer saying nothing as if saying nothing was policy. The way Jonah's nightlight pooled instead of spilling. We brought everything. Passports, social security cards. The deed that crackled like it was made from a secret. The community room smelled like lemon cleaner and old news. Framed photos of smiling families lined the wall with brass captions beneath. Addresses screwed into place like facts. I ran my fingers over one. My fingers came away clean and empty. Linda called the meeting to order with a voice that smiled. The board sat in matching jackets. The compliance director laid a glossy photo on the table. Our cul-de-sac in noon light, 9 perfect wedges. Lot 7 was a raw triangle of Florida clay brown. Rebar like ribs. No house. The records coordinator slid a printout across. County site. Parcel WR7. Undeveloped. "Come outside," Linda said, like offering dessert. We walked to our curb, the neighborhood following at a distance like birds. At the line where asphalt ends and yard begins, the air shimmered. Not heat, not haze. A memory being edited in real time. "Step," Linda said softly. "If you can." I lifted my foot and found grass, then water, then something that wasn't either. Not a hole, not a trick. A clean absence that made room for the shape of what should be there. From the street, our house stood in its lines. Deck boards and lantern and doormat. From the board's side of the shimmer, there was only a suggestion, like an architect's sketch erased and the paper smoothed with a palm. "Standards," Linda said, and for the first time I heard a tremor. "The county reflects no house. Our records must reflect no house." "And if the record says I don't exist?" I asked, not to be clever, only to know the terms. "Then we help you transition into compliance." She swallowed. "Make sure your son knows his name," she added, and it was the first human thing she had said to us. Names disappear last. We backed away from the shimmer the way you back from a cliff without turning. Inside, the air felt thinner, like the house had climbed a hill without us. The thermostat was still gone. The app insisted it had never been. The family calendar on the kitchen wall had lost its black Sharpie. Piano Tuesday, soccer Saturday. It shone blank and proud, a tooth. That night, Jonah asked to sleep between us. "The hallway picture sounds funny," he said. "Like it wants to be a different picture." He fell asleep smelling like kid shampoo and salt. I lay awake counting the seconds between the house's breaths. At 2:11, the cruiser came and the beam slid and the report was clear and nothing cracked. The world simply let go of a thread and didn't notice it snap. In the morning, weather apps knew the forecast. The mortgage app knew the due date. But when I typed our street into the maps bar, the autofill waited politely like it had never learned the letters. I said it out loud instead, to the stairs, to the studs, to the place that had already held more mornings than any other place we'd owned. 403 Larkspur Trace, I whispered, like a password. The hallway listened, long and careful, like trying to learn a new word. Technically, there were paper reasons. I would learn later the county normalized its parcel database on the 28th. I would read about defaulting unknown states to undeveloped. I would learn that Covenant Part 1.0.2 had been amended the year before to read, "Addresses shall reflect county records." But in the moment, I only knew we would have to hold our name in our mouths like a candle cupped against wind. So I labeled everything. I wrote Fielding in Sharpie inside Jonah's sneakers. I wrote 403 on the backs of frames. I taped our names under dining chairs. I printed our address and slid it under the welcome mat. I set hourly alarms to whisper our street. Larkspur Trace, Larkspur Trace, Larkspur. Felt ridiculous. It felt necessary. Toward dusk, a maple and maple truck idled at the end of the circle. A worker in a white polo got out with a felt pouch and knelt by our mailbox. He opened the bag, removed a brass 3, weighed it in his palm, then turned his hand and let it fall back into the bag as if gravity had a rule book. When he stood, the number on the box was 40I. A neat blank held the last place like a promise not yet made. I walked to him. Please stop, I said. And I didn't mean the work so much as the idea that compliance could erase a person. He looked at me with a softness that scared me more than a threat would have. Sir, he said, showing both hands, I'm not doing anything, this is just compliance. He left the felt bag at the curb like forgetting a wallet. I picked it up, heavier than it should have been. I set it on the hall table beside the ID photo of my parents. Welcome reduced to a single word. And went upstairs to tuck Jonah in and tell him a story about a house that kept the sound of the people it loved walking down its stairs. Somewhere after midnight, I woke to the smallest sound, felt on wood, a sigh from the table. I stood in the doorway and watched the hallway breathe. We weren't gone yet. We weren't going quietly. We would learn the rules. Then we would break them until the house learned us back. The night after the board meeting, sleep didn't come. Not for me, not for Ava, not for the house. It creaked the way an old man sighs, slow, deliberate, aware of itself. Every plank seemed to test its own weight. Every shadow had a question. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan until it looked like it was turning backwards, and I started thinking about Linda's voice. The calm way she'd said, "Make sure your son knows his name." That wasn't advice. That was a warning. At 4:02 a.m., a soft thump came from downstairs. The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears, but with your blood. I got up. The hallway light was off, but something was moving. A faint orange pulse from the living room, flashing like a heartbeat through the slats of the stair railing. I walked down. The felt bag sat on the table where I'd left it, but it wasn't still anymore. It was swaying, almost breathing. The glow came from inside it, thin lines of light leaking through the seams, flickering in rhythm. I reached for it, slow. The bag was warm, not hot, warm like skin. The moment I touched it, the light stopped. The house exhaled. The quiet returned. On the table next to it was the photo of my parents again, except this time the word welcome wasn't there at all. The board was blank. The frame was empty white paper under glass. And in the reflection of the glass behind me, I saw movement. At the front door, someone was sliding a letter under the mat. I opened the door fast enough to make it hit the wall. No one was there. The night smelled like sprinklers and cut grass. Across the street, porch lights flickered in perfect sync. On for 3 seconds, off for 1. Like a heartbeat for the whole neighborhood. I pulled the letter inside. No envelope this time, just thick cardstock. On it, printed in willow serif, were 3 words. Alignment scheduled, confirmed. Below it, in smaller letters, October 15th, 3 a.m. Be home. Morning came too fast. Ava was at the sink, running her fingers under cold water like it could wash off a dream. Jonah was in his pajamas at the table, drawing with the calm of a kid who didn't see the edge we were standing on. "What's alignment?" he asked, spelling the word slowly from the note. Ava looked at me. I didn't answer. When I opened the curtains, the street was busy, too busy. 3 white service trucks, no logos, no plates, parked by the cul-de-sac. Workers in pale uniforms unloaded tripods, measuring rods, laser scanners. They moved with an eerie precision, silent except for the crunch of their boots on the pavement. "Surveyors," Ava said. "They don't look like any surveyors I've ever seen." I stepped outside. One of them, tall, lean, with a clipboard that looked more like a tablet, gave me a polite nod. "Morning, sir. HOA records realignment. You'll want to remain indoors between 2:45 and 3:30 tonight." "What happens if we don't?" I asked. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll be misaligned." He went back to his work before I could say another word. At 2:30 a.m., the air felt electric, like the sky was charging. Ava and I sat on the couch, the house dark except for the glow of Jonah's nightlight upstairs. "What if they actually remove it?" Ava whispered. "Then we make sure it remembers us first." She frowned. "How?" "Stories," I said. "We tell it who we are." So I started speaking into the dark like the house could hear me. "We are the Fieldings. This is our home. We moved in July 12. Jonah's room has the rocket stickers. The smell in the garage is paint thinner and cedar. The oven hums even when it's off. The hallway picture belonged to my parents. You've heard our footsteps 100 nights. You know us?" A faint creak answered. One floorboard, slow and heavy, like something listening. Then the light from Jonah's room went out. I ran upstairs. The night light was unplugged, but the outlet was gone too. The whole panel of the wall clean and unbroken, like no one had ever installed it. "Jonah?" Whispered. He was in bed, eyes open, pupils huge. "Dad." I dreamed the house was talking back. "What did it say?" He blinked. "It said my room doesn't belong here." The clock on the nightstand blinked 2:59. Then everything went silent. No crickets, no hum, no electricity. Outside, the workers' trucks glowed white, humming in perfect unison. Light licked across the walls in thin lines, tracing the outline of our rooms like a scanner reading memory. I grabbed Ava's hand. We stood together at the top of the stairs, watching the air ripple. For a moment, I thought I saw through the house. The studs, the wiring, the skeleton of it all. And behind that, something like a void, a grid waiting to be filled. The temperature dropped. The brass number 4 from the mailbox, the one I'd reattached myself, slid off the counter and hit the floor with a sound too loud for its size. Then the voice came through the vents. Calm, female, Linda's voice. "This is an automated notice. Alignment in progress. Please remain still. This is for your own safety." A low hum shook the floorboards. Ava covered Jonah's ears. The hum deepened until it felt like our bones were vibrating. The lights pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Fast, faster, faster. And then darkness. When I woke up, the sun was pouring through the blinds. Too much sun. The kind that makes you think of summer photos, not reality. Jonah was asleep on the couch, his drawings scattered on the floor. Ava was sitting on the porch, staring at something. I joined her. Our yard was perfect. Every blade of grass the same height. Every flower positioned like it had been placed by hand. The mailbox was spotless. The brass numbers shone. 3 centered clean except... Across the street, the 9 houses of Willow Ridge were now 8. The spot where Paul's house had been, the one with the little white dog and the loud lawnmower, was empty clay. No foundation, no driveway, no memory. Just undeveloped earth, Ava whispered. They aligned him. I walked to the edge of the property. A sign stood there, brand new, white gold letters in perfect willow serif. Phase 2, coming soon. Lot available. Contact HOA for details. That night, I printed every document we owned. Deed, mortgage, photos, birth certificates. I scattered them across the dining table like weapons. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No name, no subject. Just, if you want to remember, meet me at the old maintenance shed. 2 a.m., come alone. I showed Ava. It could be a trap, she said, or it could be someone else who's still real. The shed was at the far end of the subdivision, behind the tennis courts, where the manicured hedges stopped pretending. It smelled of rain and earth and something older. A flashlight beam hit my face. "You came," a voice said. It was Paul, the neighbor who used to mow too early. "I thought you were gone," I said. He lowered the light. His eyes were hollow. "I should be. What is this alignment?" I asked. He handed me a folder, HOA stationery stamped with the seal. Inside were photos, aerial shots of Willow Ridge. Every few months, fewer houses, some erased completely. They've been doing it for years, he said. Erasing parcels that fall out of sync with the county records. The software started as a maintenance tracker. Then it learned. The HOA thinks it's saving the community from inconsistency. I flipped through the photos. One showed our street from 2 years ago. 12 houses, not 9. Why didn't anyone notice? They do, they just forget afterward. How are you still here? He smiled, a dry, haunted curve. Because I kept something the system can't digitize. He pulled out a small brass number, 5, from his pocket. Every erased lot leaves something behind. Metal wood sound. Keep a piece, you keep your name. He handed me the number. You'll need it. When they come again, make sure your house remembers this. I started to ask what he meant, but when I looked up, he was gone. The shed was empty. The door swung open to a dark, silent neighborhood. When I got home, the porch light was on even though I hadn't switched it. The house was humming, low, almost musical. On the table, the felt bag was gone. In its place lay a brass number, not 3, not 4.5, the same one Paul had given me. And underneath it, in perfect willow serif, a note. Your alignment has been delayed. Temporarily. I didn't tell Ava about the way the felt bag moved again the next morning. It wasn't much, just the smallest nudge on the hall table while I was lacing my shoes, but it felt like a breath from a mouth that didn't exist. I put my palm on the bag and waited. The weight settled, the table went still, and the house made that barely audible throat sound I'd started to recognize, like it was clearing a memory. I took the brass 5 with me when I left. Felt wrong to carry, like a piece of someone else's name. But it also felt worse to leave it where the HOA could come in with clean hands and tidy it away. I wrapped it in an old sock and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The shape pressed against my ribs while I walked down to the end of Larkspur, past the community board where Linda's face smiled from a flyer about fall movie night, past the tennis courts that always looked freshly invented, to the bend where the undeveloped lots started. The air had a sweetness to it that morning, cut grass and sprinkler mist and the faint ozone smell. After last night's alignment there are places in Willow Ridge where you can stand so the development brochure view appears in front of you, exactly as the artist sketched it. The 3-story homes with matching roof lines, the ornamental trees that never drop anything messy, the sidewalk curve that makes everyone's dog walkers look like they're on the same gentle errand. I found one of those angles and stopped, because across the street the empty clay triangle that used to be Paul's house was acting like a mirror with bad glass, not reflecting the sky but offering back a kind of not quite image of the homes behind me. I took a step to the left. The shimmer lagged a half second. A step to the right. It smudged and then corrected like a person nodding yes while thinking no. Someone coughed behind me. I turned. Nobody. The cough came again, not from the sidewalk, not from the cul-de-sac. It came from the lot. It was a very ordinary cough, the kind you do when you don't know what to say at a grocery store. I walked to the edge where the curb fell into clay. My body did not want to go further. Felt like walking toward a sound booth and seeing someone inside mouthing words with the glass between you. "Paul?" I said, testing the idea. Nothing answered in words. But the clay surface shifted like a light behind thin curtains. I saw a shape that was almost a person moving through a room that wasn't there. A hand reached out to where a doorknob would have been if a wall existed. The air distorted under the palm. I could have left. I should have left. Instead, I did what you do when something unbelievable is one step beyond belief. I tried to make it normal. "If you can hear me," I said, steady like I was speaking through a closed bathroom door, "I've got your number." I fished the brass 5 from my jacket and held it out. It felt colder in the shade of whatever was happening. A small wind found the back of my neck. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I'm not sure I could have pulled my attention away if the street had lifted up and walked around me. The shape moved closer. The cough again, clearly male. The clay didn't dip under footprints, but the shimmer thickened like breath on glass. I took one step down the slope and felt gravity hesitate, as if even the planet wanted to check with the HOA before letting me proceed. A car horn blipped from around the bend. I turned, just a reflex, and the moment I did, everything went blank. Like when a TV loses input, pale, humming nothing. Then my phone took over my eyes with its insistence and I glanced down. A text from Ava. "Can you grab milk?" Under it, a second bubble from an unknown number. "Stop, do not cross." The third line arrived while I was reading the second. Same unknown number. "They can't see you if you don't move." The cough again, closer. I looked back at the lot and for a split second the shimmer cleared like the surface of a pond when a fish breaks it. Paul stood there in profile, clean as he ever had been on a Saturday with his visor, except the edges of him fuzzed like a thing being printed. He touched his chest. I thought he was pointing to his heart. He tapped twice lower. "The pocket." I held the brass 5 flat on my palm. He nodded, or the image did something nod-like. And then he was gone, not even an exit. Just the video of him winding backwards into clay. My legs remembered what bodies do when a line is crossed and they carried me backwards up the curb without telling me about it. When I reached the sidewalk, I realized my phone was in my hand. I texted the unknown number. "Who is this?" The typing dots started, stopped, started. A reply. "The person you think is gone." Then, "Don't let them take Jonah outside after dark. The dogs bark at numbers they can't see." I stood there too long, like an idiot, staring at plain English that should not exist. Then a golf cart with the HOA logo hummed into the cul-de-sac. and I did what everyone in Willow Ridge is trained to do. I folded my fear in half and tucked it into a pocket next to "Good morning." Linda drove. Beside her, a man with a tablet and the gray suit of a compliance priest surfed through screens with his thumb, like he was changing channels on a safe future. "Mark," Linda called in a voice that could bless bread. "I'm glad I ran into you. I think we can resolve your records today." "Great," I said, because it is stupid to say the opposite to a person who can type you out of your own house. The man with the tablet didn't look up. He swiped, tutted, swiped again. "Parcel 7, he said to the air. "It keeps rehydrating." "Rehydrating," I said. "Like soup." He gave me a brief, pitying smile. "Like data," they parked at my curb. Linda placed both palms on her kneecaps and leaned toward me as if we were in a book club, and the chapter we didn't like was about to be skipped. "You received our alignment notice, yes?" I said nothing. "Excellent. Tonight will be very straightforward. We simply need you to remain inside during the window. No photographs, no recordings, no calls to external agencies who don't understand our processes. Afterwards, the discrepancy should be resolved." She smiled with all the teeth her orthodontist ever blessed. "Resolved like Paul's?" I asked, keeping my voice low. The smile held. "Who?" she asked, and I watched the word unclasp in her mouth and drop out like something she had never been taught. She tapped her clipboard. "Also, just a friendly reminder to keep your mailbox flag down unless you intend to send mail. We've had reports of children playing with them." She winked toward my house as if Jonah were doing small mischief instead of being a person I was trying to glue to the world with the sound of his name. They left without looking at the clay lot that pretended it had never held a life. I watched them go and realized my hands smelled like metal. From holding the 5, I wiped them on my jeans and tried not to think about whether metal can learn fingerprints. At home, Ava had the kettle on like a habit that kept the roof attached. "You were gone," she said, which was not a question. And then, with a pulse of air in her throat, "You weren't answering." "I was listening," I said. "Paul's there." Her face did something in the middle, hope and fear canceling into a shape I wish I didn't recognize. "Not there," I corrected. "Near, like a bad reflection." We didn't tell Jonah specifics. We made dinner. We cleaned up after dinner. We switched on the living room lamp and watched 2 episodes of a show where the conflicts were stupid on purpose. The kind where everyone learns to be okay at the end in 30 minutes. At 10:18, I took the brass 5 to the garage and looked for a place to put it. That wasn't a place anyone would think to look for a contraband number. My father used to stash passports in the freezer because he was born in a country where paper had to be kept cold. I looked at our freezer and laughed at myself and put the 5 under the waffle iron instead, wrapped in tinfoil like a disappointment. When the house gets serious, you can hear it. Not the creaks. Not the settling. You can hear the way the air chooses a direction and stays. Around midnight, the rooms got calm in that intent way. I walked the downstairs, light off, touching door frames with my fingertips, saying our address under my breath. It felt like convincing a skittish dog to let you put a leash back on. Upstairs, I could hear Ava murmuring to Jonah, telling him a story he'd heard 100 times about the day he was born. Names, dates, times, anchors thrown around a boat you can't see. The first interruption was small. The stove clock blinked 12 ho, not because the power had gone out, but because the time had decided to forget itself. The microwave followed. The thermostat display would have too if we still had a thermostat. A pressure built in my ears like landing. Outside, somewhere near the cul-de-sac, I heard a soft series of clicks like someone measuring air with calipers. I don't know why I opened the front door. Habit, curiosity, the need to be the person at the threshold when the world tries to pass into your living room. The streetlight made pools on the asphalt. In the nearest pool, perfectly centered, lay a sheet of white paper. I picked it up. Willow Serif, of course. Alignment window extended, 2:45 a.m. to 4 a.m. At the bottom, a QR code and the words, "Click here if you are human." I went inside and didn't click. At 2:52, the house started humming again, the same frequency as last time. I went to the bottom of the stairs and sat on the second step so I could be halfway between my family and the door. The hum rose. A green line of light slid along the ceiling like a level-finding plumb. It paused over the hall table, stuttered there, and then moved on, like it had found something out of spec and put it on a list. Ava called my name without volume. I went up. She pointed at the wall where Jonah's growth chart hung, pencil marks, and dates, and the silly little dinosaur sticker he'd insisted on putting at 48 inches, because that was how tall the hero is in the movie. The chart was still there. The pencil lines were not. The wood under the paper had that fresh sanded smell like it had been a tree 5 minutes ago. I pressed my thumb hard against the paper until the nail left a crescent. The crescent faded. "Say it," I told her. "Say the street." She did. Over and over, not chanting, just speaking like you speak to a baby when you want your voice to be the ceiling it sleeps under. Jonah woke without opening his eyes and said, thick with dream, "Dad, the door is on the wrong side." I didn't ask which door. All I could think was, not yet. The hum spiked. The floor trembled. From below us, the sound of something light falling, the feel of a picture frame choosing to let go. I went down 2 steps and stopped because a woman's voice, gentle and identical to last night's, issued from the air vent. "This is an automated notice. Alignment in progress. Please remain still. Please do not obstruct." I'm not proud of the part of me that wanted to answer. I said no, because there is a point in every process where permission must be denied by someone with a throat. The hum shifted. For a weird second, it felt like the house had tilted, like we were a boat and a wave had passed under the foundation. On the hall table, the felt bag gave a little hop. I reached it just as it spilled, numbers clinking out like teeth. 1, 2, 3, and my 5, and then a blank tile the exact size of a number but with no digit. The tile was heavier than the rest. It landed on the tablecloth and darkened the fabric around it, like it emitted absence the way a hot thing emits heat. I didn't put them back in the bag. I grabbed the blank, the 3 and the 5, pressed them into my palm and went to the front door. Outside, the air was the green of fish tanks. The streetlight hummed in sympathy with my bones. I crossed the porch and stepped into the yard, and the sensation I had at Paul's lot hit me here, at my own house. The edge where something becomes something else, that brief, insulting delay while reality checks its clipboard. I put the blank tile on the mailbox where the 403 ends in a little lip, put the 3 on top of it, put the 5 under my thumb like I was building a code. The hum dropped, like I'd confused it. For a single heartbeat, the world stuttered, and 30 feet away across the cul-de-sac, the clay lot flickered like a closet light when a bulb is failing. In that flicker, I saw a picture, not of Paul's house, but of mine. Not now, then, the day we moved in. The box with Ava's books in Sharpie, Jonah's cardboard sword on the grass, my father's old toolbox open like a red mouth on the driveway. I saw myself in the middle of the picture, holding the brassy 403 plate we'd just bought, laughing because we'd centered it wrong, and Ava had said, "No one will notice," and I'd said, "Linda will." I could hear the laugh. It wasn't memory. It was a sound my ears made sure to give to me as proof. The laugh faded. The clay went dull. Behind me, the front door opened. Ava stood in the frame with Jonah at her hip, both of them lit blue by a house that was deciding whether to keep them. "What did you do?" she asked, not angry, just catching her breath. "I confused it," I said, "for a second. Then the golf cart came again, not humming this time, but whirring like something with purpose. It stopped at our curb and the ties. Man in the gray suit got out with a device that looked like a stud finder married to a taser. He pointed it at the numbers on our box, then at my fist holding the tiles. The device beeped in a way I had never heard. Not alarm, not approval, recognition. "Sir," he said, and his voice had lost that smoothness people who win arguments carry like cologne. "I need you to place those objects on the ground." "No," I said again with the throat. He nodded once, the way you nod when you accept that a conversation will end somewhere less polite than it began. He touched his earpiece. "Escalate," he said. The streetlights winked off, then on, in a pattern I would later see repeated in a video of a data center flushing a cache. The air turned cold enough to make my gums ache. Back inside, The clock above the TV counted 2:59. It held there, the colon pulsing, refusing to name a new minute. I didn't know you could miss a minute until the minute didn't arrive. I stood in the doorway with my hand out, the numbers like weights, and watched the sidewalk to see if the world would blink and remove it. That is when I saw him. Not in the clay lot. Not in a shimmer. In the glass of our front window, reflected clean as a car parked in the street. A man standing exactly where I was standing, holding exactly what I was holding, wearing my jacket, my face. I lifted my hand to wave at my own. Joke, because that is what minds do when they need to not break. The man did not wave back. He opened his mouth and spoke. I saw the words form. I couldn't hear them because the hum was back to full and my ears were full of water. He spoke again, slower. The hum dipped enough for the last two words to get through. He was me and he said, "Don't move." Behind the reflection in the hallway, the framed black and white photo of my parents loosened on its nail and slid down the wall in a straight, efficient motion until it rested face up on the tablecloth. The glass did not shatter. The blank page under it stared at the ceiling. The man in the window raised his hand, not to mirror me, not to wave. He pointed past my shoulder. I turned. Jonah's eyes were open too wide in a face that was all pupils. He put his hand out to me the way kids do when they're not asking for a hug but for a grip. I reached for him. The house shifted hard enough to make the porch boards complain. Something like a breeze moved through the foyer without touching our clothes or hair. The exact second my palm met my son's, the colon on the TV clock blinked and the minute arrived, and with it a sound like a file being saved. The man in the window smiled. I knew my smile. This was not mine. He shook his head almost kindly. The hum stopped. Silence. Then my phone in my pocket buzzed with a message from the unknown number that had told me about the shed. 4 words. They're aligning the boy. The text on my phone stayed lit for maybe 3 seconds before the screen dimmed. But those words stayed bright behind my eyes. They're aligning the boy. I don't remember putting the phone down. I remember my thumb missing the unlock button twice because my hand wouldn't stop shaking. Jonah was still gripping my other hand, small and hot, the way kids get when they're sick or scared. The hum hadn't returned yet, but the silence that replaced it wasn't peace. It was a held breath, like the air was waiting to see what I'd do next. I pulled Jonah against me and yelled upstairs for Ava. She appeared in the doorway already knowing something was wrong. "Don't move," I said. "Whatever happens, stay inside this room. If you hear the hum again, cover his ears and keep saying his name. Don't stop saying it." She nodded once, tight-lipped, mother automatic, and reached for Jonah. But he shook his head. "I don't want to go upstairs," he whispered. "The house up there is wrong." The word house landed heavier than it should have. "Then we stay here," I said and turned the deadbolt. At 3:01, the hallway lights flared white, not on, just flared, like every bulb took one breath and held it. The floor gave a low creak that didn't belong to wood. Sounded like an engine starting somewhere deep under us. The thermostat was gone, but the air still changed. It dropped fast, a refrigerator exhale that fogged the windows. A slow, steady tapping began on the porch. Tap, pause, too deliberate for wind, too slow for rain. I motioned for Ava to take Jonah into the kitchen and crouched by the door window. Through the beveled glass, I saw a single shape standing in the streetlight. Small frame, bare feet, pajama pants with rockets. For half a second, I thought it was another child. Then he lifted his head, and I saw my own son's face looking back at the door from outside. Ava gasped before I could stop her. Jonah, the one inside, turned toward the sound and then froze. The tapping outside stopped. The boy in the streetlight smiled. A slow copy of Jonah's grin. The kind he gave when he wanted an extra bedtime story. His eyes were blank white, not glowing, just wrong. Like the part that should hold color had been erased. "Don't look," I told my Jonah. But he was already walking forward, hypnotized by the sight of himself. I grabbed his shoulder. His body jerked like static jumped between us. The hum returned, soft at first, sliding up the walls, crawling through the vents. The other Jonah, the one outside, lifted his hand and placed it flat against the glass. The pain rippled like the surface of water. I shouted, "No!" and slammed my palm on our side of the glass. The ripple stopped, but the glass stayed warm. From somewhere above, the automated voice drifted again, distant but clear. Alignment in progress. Please remain still, Linda, I said to the air. You touch him and I'll burn this place down. No answer. Only the hum deepening until it vibrated my teeth. The porch light flared bright enough to throw shadows backward across the ceiling. For a second, I saw the entire outline of the boy outside imprinted on the wall behind us, like a photograph burned into film, and in the same frame, a taller shadow beside him. A woman's silhouette holding his hand. Ava's voice broke. Mark, I know, I said. Get him away from the window. She pulled Jonah toward the stairs. The boy outside moved in perfect sync. Same steps, same pace, when like a reflection through delay. When they reached the first step, the copy and the shadow woman both tilted their heads at the same angle. Then the lights cut. The hum surged. In total dark, the house felt smaller. I could sense the walls breathing closer. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I turned it over. Unknown number, one attachment. I tapped it. A short video loaded, shaky low light. It was the feed from our own doorbell camera. The timestamp read live. On screen, the porch looked normal, empty. No boy, no woman, no light. Just an open door swinging gently. But our door was shut. I could feel the knob against my knee. The feed continued, and a second later, a faint reflection appeared in the lens. A man standing inside, holding a phone at chest level. The man was me. The message cut out. Then the doorbell chimed. Once, soft and polite, I yanked the door open. No one. Only the cold smell of clay and fresh-cut grass. Across the street, the empty lot shimmered again. A figure stood halfway in, halfway out. Paul, I think. He raised one hand in warning and pointed to the ground in front of my porch. I followed his gesture. The concrete there was sweating, tiny beads of moisture forming the shape of words. Bring the boy inside the circle. Behind me, Ava called, Mark, hurry! I ran back in. The hum was turning into a rhythm now, pulses that made the light fixtures swing. The photo frames rattled in their places. I dragged the living room rug aside, grabbed the chalk Jonah had used on the patio, and drew a rough circle on the wood floor. Sloppy, half remembered from a tutorial about grounding electricity. I didn't know what else to do. In, I told them. Ava pulled Jonah into the circle. I shut the door and stepped in last. The moment my foot crossed the line, the hum snapped off. Silence again. Jonah's breathing, Ava's tears, my heart, then a low voice right behind my ear. Wrong circle. I spun, but no one was there. Only the wall, smooth, beige, innocent. The thermostat's outline was back. The screen blinked 72 degree, then 71 degree. Then the numbers dissolved into letters, aligned 1 of 3. I backed away, grabbing Jonah close. The kitchen clock ticked once, twice, then rewound 3 seconds like a heart stuttering. Every device that still worked in the house, the microwave, the TV standby light, even the Bluetooth speaker we never used, lit up with the same phrase. Aligned 1 of 3, Ava whispered. Mark, what does that mean? It means they're not finished. A crash came from upstairs, Jonah's room. Something heavy fell, followed by a muffled thump like a person landing on carpet. I ran up the steps 2 at a time. The air in the hallway shimmered. The door to his room was ajar, light bleeding out from the crack. A 2-white light, medical, sterile, inside. Everything was floating, toys, books, even the bedsheet, drifting slow in the air like underwater. At the center stood Jonah's body, eyes closed. Lifted 6 inches above the floor, fingers twitching as if he were tracing invisible shapes. I grabbed him. The moment my skin touched his, every object crashed back down. His eyes snapped open. Dad, it's trying to teach me numbers, he said in a voice that wasn't his pitch. It says I'm missing one. Missing what? I asked, shaking him gently. Number 4, he said. It needs the 4, the brass 4. The one that had fallen off the mailbox weeks ago. My mind raced. The bag on the table, the spilled numbers, the blank tile. Stay here, I said. Do not leave this circle. But there was no circle upstairs, only the one downstairs. I cursed under my breath and sprinted down the steps. The hall table was empty. No felt bag, no numbers. The front door stood wide open, though I'd locked it. Outside, the cul-de-sac was full of light. Every house had its porch lamps on. All the same brightness, all pointed inward toward ours. In the middle of the asphalt stood Linda, clipboard in hand, her hair perfectly still despite the breeze. "Mr. Fielding," she called, "your alignment is incomplete. Please surrender the child for calibration." "You're insane," I shouted back. "He's not your data." She smiled, that rehearsed HOA welcome grin. "Everything here is data, Mark. You signed the covenant." Behind her, rows of residents stepped out of their doorways, perfectly spaced, perfectly still, holding their own children by the shoulders. Each pair looked toward me. Their porch lights strobed once, synchronizing with the rise of the hum. Ava screamed my name from inside. I turned. Jonah was at the window, palms flat against the glass again, whispering something I couldn't hear. The same two-white light was building behind him, spreading through the house like backlit paper. Linda's voice rose above the hum. "Let go and he'll be remembered. Resist and he'll be replaced." The glass under Jonah's hands began to melt, the outline of his fingers sinking into it as if it were wax. Ava tried to pull him back, but her arms passed through the glow like it was smoke. I ran to the porch, yelling his name until it broke in my throat. "Jonah, say the street. Say it loud." His mouth moved. The hum cracked. For a second, the whole neighborhood flickered. Every house blinking between existence and blueprint, between suburb and skeleton. Then everything went white. When color returned, it was morning. The street looked freshly paved. The houses gleamed identical. The air smelled new, like drywall and mint. A delivery van rolled past with the logo Maple and Maple, home standards on its side. A worker in uniform waved. "Morning, sir. Welcome to Willow Ridge. You must be the new homeowner." I looked down. My hands were clean. No cuts, no bruises. The brass numbers on the mailbox read 404. Inside the house, there was no Ava's mug, no Jonah's drawings. The walls were blank, unpainted. My phone buzzed once more. Unknown number, one line of text. He remembers the wrong address, then the message deleted itself. I woke to voices in my kitchen that didn't belong to me. Not the hum, not the automated notice. Human voices, cheerful, clipped, the kind you use when you're showing a model home to strangers. "And as you can see, 404 Larkspur's move-in ready," a woman said, each syllable polished. "Quartz counters, soft close drawers, HOA-approved fixtures." I sat up on the floor. The couch was gone, and stared at the ceiling I'd painted last month. It was the right color, but the tiny roller streak in the corner, the one I'd promised to fix, wasn't there. I stood. My shoes weren't by the door. My door wasn't my door. It was the same door, but new, without fingerprints. Without the scuff Jonah made with his scooter. Two people stood by the island. A realtor in a navy blazer and a woman in a yellow sweater I didn't recognize. A boy about Jonah's height leaned into the pantry, knocking it with his knuckles like he was checking a melon. He had the same cowlick. He hummed a tune under his breath. I knew it before my mind found the title. 3 notes Jonah always tapped on the table when he thought. The realtor saw me and switched smiles without moving any muscle. "Oh, sorry," she said brightly. Maintenance was supposed to finish before the showing. "Are you with Maple and Maple?" "Yes," I said, because the truth wouldn't get me past the first sentence. "Just checking the water pressure." My voice sounded like someone else's coat I had borrowed. The woman in yellow gave me the quick once-over. People give workers they don't expect to see twice, then returned to her brochure. The boy slid along the pantry shelves, finger drifting over the wood. "Mom," he said, "it smells like cereal here even though there's no cereal." His mother put a hand on his head. "We'll bring our own smell," she said, loving and distracted. On the island lay 3 glossy sheets. I picked one up as if I were tidying. "Welcome to Willow Ridge, Phase 2. Address 404 Larkspur Trace." A photo of my living room staged for strangers. The rug we didn't own, the plant we'd never water. A bullet list of covenants. At the bottom in light gray, Tour Associate Linda Harrow, and beneath that, smaller, Prospect Mark Fielding with an empty checkbox beside my name. I put the sheet down before my hands left sweat on the paper and walked to the sink. The faucet gleamed like nobody had ever taught it bad habits. I turned the handle. Water ran obediently, cold. The sound was wrong, too pure. Ours had a thread of metallic hiss from the valve I was meaning to replace. Noise floor. I muttered without deciding to say it out loud. Sorry? The realtor said. Quiet, I said, covering. Good sign. The boy left the pantry and drifted toward the hallway. He stopped at the exact spot where Jonah's growth chart had hung and pressed his palm to the wall as if expecting texture. It feels like a sticker used to be here, he said to the air. His mother called, Noah, don't wander. Noah. He looked like Jonah would look if someone told a computer to remodel him for a catalog. Same ears, same habit of counting with lips when he read numbers. He squinted at the mailbox through the front window. Why does it say 404? He asked more to himself than anyone. Error code, I thought, and the part of my brain that keeps me employed observed. Distantly, that joke's too on the nose even for a ghost. The realtor clapped in that soft way that means tour over. We'll be in touch, she told the woman. They stepped onto the porch. Noah lagged, eyes caught by the stairs. He put one foot on the first step and stopped, listening. I think he heard what I've always heard. The second tread that creaks when your weight finds the nail. He smiled a private smile like someone remembering a punchline. Coming, he called, but the word caught. He looked at me. His mouth formed a J before he corrected. Noah, he said carefully, pointing to his chest like a kid learning introductions. That's my name. He left. The door closed. The house breathed in. I checked every room. The upstairs was a hotel room that had borrowed our floor plan. No drawings on the desk. No rocket stickers on the wall. Just matte paint that refused tape. In Jonah's closet, at the very back where a stud meets a drywall seam, my thumb found the roughness of a small piece of painter's tape. The color matched the wall, but the texture didn't. I peeled it. Underneath, the square of paper I'd slid there after the first patrol car, 403 typed in 12-point font. The ink was faint as a dream. The adhesive had bled into the paper and made a halo, but it was there. I put the 403 in my pocket and felt something else, thin and metallic, slide against it. The blank tile from the bag, the weight that darkened fabric. I hadn't realized I'd pocketed it last night. It sat heavy in my palm, colder than the room. I took the tile to the window and held it up to the morning. The light went around it, not through it, the way rain goes around a stone. In its reflection, the cul-de-sac's empty lot wavered. A shape moved, too tall for a kid. I went downstairs and out the front door, feeling along the jambs for the dent I'd made moving the couch. The dent wasn't there. Fresh wood under new paint, new address on the post, fresh records in a system that had decided to forget. The lot shimmered like heat over asphalt. I stopped short of the clay and watched. The image stabilized and a man stepped forward until his face was the easiest face I've ever had to recognize. Mine. Not the mirror trick from the window. A man standing in the place where a house used to be, alive and wrong in the same breath. Don't call out, he said, and I heard my own voice thrown into the morning. They'll triangulate sound. Who are you? I asked, because the human mouth asks even when the human brain knows. The version they wrote down, he said, the one they keep when they turn you off at night. He smiled like I smile when I want to avoid a fight. They're making a copy they can maintain. Data's cheaper than people. What do they want with my son? He looked past me at my mailbox. 4, he said. They're missing a 4, you saw it. Aligned 1 of 3. 4 anchors, metal, paper, breath, and witness. They got metal and paper last night. They almost got your breath. Don't let them get witness. If the neighborhood says it saw something else, you'll be something else. How do I stop it? 3 a.m., he said. The minute they write you, you can write back. But you need all 4 anchors in one place. I have the deed, I said. I have a tile. He stepped closer to the shimmer. His hand pushed into nothing, then found resistance like he was leaning on a glass window you can't see. You need a 4, he said. There's only one place they keep numbers they don't want changed. Where? The meeting room, he said. Bottom drawer. Under the templates. Bring a witness who still remembers your address without looking at a sign. Who would that be? I asked. Children, he said. Before the rules get inside, they know what a street is because of how it sounds in a house. Kids and the ones the system thinks are errors. He tilted his head like a man listening to a server rack. Hurry, your 303 is coming. What happens if I miss? You won't miss, he said. and I heard a kindness in it I hadn't known I needed. "You'll be replaced." He dissolved, not like fog, not like fiction. He thinned into a version of the lot the county would be proud to map. I stood on the curb until the hum of a golf cart pulled my spine back into the day. The community room at the clubhouse had the smell I was beginning to associate with amnesia. Lemon. Printer heat, coffee without coffee in it. A folding table held brochures, each stack squared to the inch. Each headline a promise. At the far end, a closed door. Board members only in willow serif. Brass letters dry as commandments. The receptionist, new, young, too fresh to carry the local silence, looked up from a screen. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for records," I said, handing her the audit letter with its blank where the address should be. She made a face of practiced sympathy and pointed to a pen cup and a sign-in sheet. I signed Mark Fielding, 404 Larkspur, because lies that rhyme with new truth make good passwords. She watched the cup. I watched the door. When she took a call, I walked. Not fast, not slow. If you look like you belong, you can move through most posted signs. The boardroom was colder than the hall. Temperature control is a kind of control that people who like control enjoy. A long table, 6 chairs, the clock that still hated telling the minute. On the far wall, a credenza with thin drawers. Templates, I thought. Because once you see how a place thinks about itself, you can predict where it hides the tools it uses to become that self. Third drawer, stencils, address numbers in clear plastic, sizes labeled. Fourth, sample fonts, embossed cards, willow serif in every weight like a family portrait. Fifth, blank brass tiles wrapped in paper sleeves, heavier than they looked. Sixth, the numbers. They lay cushioned in felt, sorted into compartments like pills. 0 through 9, 3 of each except 4. The 4 compartment was empty. The paper sleeve underneath was marked in pencil. HOA board. Out, in use, and a date that was last night. I closed the drawer before rage could teach my hands a lesson. Bottom drawer, more felt. Single 4 wrapped in an older sleeve. The sleeve had an older logo. The edges had the patina of a thing that's been handled by people who thought hands make you real. I slid it into my pocket and felt the blank tile thump hello against it. Paper, metal. Witness. I needed a witness who still believed the world because it heard it, not because a document had been notarized. The receptionist was off the phone when I returned. "Did you find what you needed?" She asked, polite as a paperclip. "I'll let you know," I said, and walked out into a neighborhood that looked more like a rendering with every hour the sun stood higher. I went to the only person who had looked at my house like it had a voice. The boy in the yellow sweater's boy. I didn't know which unit they were touring next. I did know that new prospects always wind up at the pool before they sign anything. The brochure told me so in its cheerful map. I cut through a row of ornamental trees that refused to drop anything, and saw them by the gate. Noah with his palm on the metal mesh, humming the same 3 notes he'd hummed in my kitchen. "Hey," I said, crouching enough to be a person and not a problem. "I'm with maintenance. Quick question." I pointed toward the mailbox row that served the pool. "What's that number say?" He didn't look. He listened. He turned his head so one ear faced the boxes, then the other, like he could hear how the light hit paint. "It says 403, he said, slow, like tasting. "But it looks like 404. "That's wrong." "Good ear," I said, and the relief almost bent me. His mother approached with the caution people use when a stranger is talking to her kid. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Sorry," I said. "We had an address misprint on some welcome packets. Your son just saved me a lot of trips to the printer." "His name is Noah," she said, reflexively proud, reflexively protective. "Good name," I said, "because what else do you say to a mother?" I looked at him. "Would you like to help me fix a mistake later?" "There's a reward." "What kind?" he asked. "The kind where a house remembers a song." He thought about it in that serious way kids own. "Okay," he said. "But you have to be home by 9. "Me too," I said. 9 is when houses start saying things they didn't mean. I didn't tell him or his mother the time that mattered. 3:03. I didn't say Jonah's name. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because words are currency and the HOA had a way of taxing what you say. When darkness came, it came quickly like someone turned a dimmer. I set the table with what I had. The deed, the old 403 from behind the closet tape, the blank tile, The brass 4 that felt like a tooth. Paper, metal, breath would be ours at the minute. Witness would be Noah if courage didn't go out of style before midnight. At 2:57, a quiet knock I recognized tapped the side door. The rhythm of someone trying not to set off a dog. Noah stood there with a flashlight under his chin like a spooky story. His mother beside him, sweater wrapped tight. "We're not staying," she said immediately. "He insisted on checking your noise thing." 2 minutes, I said. "You'll stand in the doorway and leave when I say." She nodded, because something in my face must have convinced her this was either harmless or necessary. She put her hand on Noah's shoulder and stayed very still, like not moving was a skill she had practiced. I set the deed on the hall table and placed the old 403 on top. I put the blank tile under the mailbox numbers and the brass 4 beside my thumb, ready. At 3:02 the house began its note. The green line of light ran the ceiling like a level. The colon on the clock held its breath. The porch light warmed until the glass blushed. "Say it," I told Noah, and his mother glanced at me like I had asked him for a PIN number. "Say what you hear this house call itself." He squinted, listening to walls like a seashell. 4-0. The hum tried to lift his syllable. He frowned and pushed back with sound. 3. A crack like a seed pod popping ran through the house, not loud but certain. The picture that had been blank on the table clicked within its frame, glass tightening against matte. Ava's mug appeared on the counter. Not a trick, not staged. The ring of tea it had left last week returned a shade at a time, color assembling out of air. The rug remembered its pattern. "Again," I said, and Noah said it again. And then without me asking, he sang it. Like a kid sings a jersey number. Like a street is a team you root for. 403, 403. I slid the brass 4 into place over the blank tile. It fit with a sound the room recognized. The porch light steadied. The green line paused and ticked back 1 notch like a carpenter correcting an angle. The clock's colon blinked. 3:03 arrived. "Breathe," I said to the house, and I said the address with it. Ava's voice joined. Not from upstairs, not from memory, from beside me. Her breath warm, her hand landing on mine like she'd been reaching for it since the beginning of a minute that finally finished. 403, she said, crying and laughing in the same mouth. Jonah's voice followed from the stairs, small and fierce. 403! The hum didn't like it. It surged hard enough to rattle the teacup. A shadow moved across the window from the street. The golf cart, the gray suit. More figures behind with blank tablets held like shields. The automated notice voice came through the vent. Not Linda's recording anymore, but something without a human's seams. Unauthorized entry, it said. Witness contamination. Reverting. The porch light flared so bright the bulb screamed and died. The clock skipped. 3:03 blinked to 3:02 again and then blanked. "Hold," I told the room. "Hold the minute." We said the address and said the address and said the address until the word was only a shape our mouths made. The door rattled. Linda's voice came through wood with the sweetness of poison. "Mark, open up." "Your outside procedure." Noah looked at his mother. She looked at me. For one terrifying second, I thought she would decide this was a game. Decide to leave. Decide to step out of the doorway and become a person who watched a thing instead of one who witnessed it. She stayed. She put her other hand on her son's head like a blessing and whispered very softly, "I hear it too." Then, from the vent, not the automated voice, not Linda, Jonah's whisper, close to my ear from somewhere I couldn't map, "Dad, they're here." "Where?" I said, louder than I meant to. His answer came from behind the wall. From under the stairs, from any place a duplex cable could carry sound. In the mirror house. The front window turned black from the inside like a screen accepting a different input. My reflection appeared. Me with Ava and Jonah, and a boy whose outline didn't sit right with the light. The other me lifted a hand and I felt the urge to raise mine like when you watch your own old video. And you forget it's not real time. He didn't wave. He showed me his palm. On it, inked in a child's tight hand, 4 letters and 3 numbers, Ava 403. He pressed his palm to the glass. The surface bowed inward a fraction. Behind me, the doorknob turned with the determination of a person who believes they're doing you a favor. "Mark," Linda sang. "Time's up." The window's blackness brightened like a sunrise in reverse. The other me mouthed something I didn't catch and began to fade. I grabbed the brass 4 with my right hand and the deed with my left and did the only thing that made sense in a world that had lost that feature. I pressed both to the glass where his palm had been. The whole house rang. Not a hum, not a voice. A bell, low and familiar. The sound of the day we closed when the agent tapped the key against the counter and joked, "Welcome home." The door frame groaned. The floor stuttered. For an instant, that split the difference between a second and a life. I saw 2 hallways occupy the same space. The staged hallway with a rug we didn't own, and ours with a Lego I'd stepped on last month still hiding under the console. The 2 tried to decide which was true. The golf cart's headlamps washed the room. Figures blurred at the edges of the window. The automated voice announced, "Witness overage. Purge initiated." I turned to get Jonah into my arms before the minute snapped shut, but he wasn't by the stairs. He was at the top landing, eyes fixed on the ceiling grate he could never reach without a chair. He stood on tiptoe anyway, as if something above had lowered just enough to take his small, "Sure hand, Dad," he said, not frightened. "Just reporting like always. I know where the mirror house is." "Where?" I asked, though I didn't want the answer. He pointed through the grate, past plaster, past ducts toward the quiet that sits above every ceiling in every new home. The part no one thinks about after inspection day. "Up," he said. "It's built right on top of us." The grate flexed. The screws turned themselves one after the other, with the tidy patience of a person unscrewing facts. The last thing I saw before the cover gave was a small brass screw head rolling toward the edge, catching light, catching nothing, dropping into the dark. The screw hit the floor and rolled in a slow circle before stopping at my foot. The sound it made, metal against wood, was the most human noise left in the room. Jonah was still standing on the landing, his face turned upward, eyes fixed on the vent that now hung by one corner. The air from the duct was colder than the night outside. It smelled faintly of paint and something newer than paint, like fresh plastic wrap. I started toward him, careful not to break whatever thin thread of reality still held us together. "Jonah," I said, keeping my voice low, "step back from it." He didn't move. "It's open now," he whispered. They left it open for me. The grate dropped. It didn't clang. It landed soft like someone above had placed it down, and then from the dark square above, light began to spill. A white glow that wasn't light at all but absence pretending to be light. Ava reached the bottom of the stairs just as a hand slid out of the vent. It was small, pale, the fingers too still, not reaching, waiting. Jonah's name ripped out of me, but it came too late. He lifted his hand, mirroring the motion perfectly. For an instant they touched, boy and reflection, skin meeting skin through air that wasn't air. The light swallowed him. Ava screamed. The sound twisted itself against the walls and came back smaller. I ran, jumped the last 2 steps, grabbed the edge of the vent and pulled myself up. The metal was warm under my hands. Inside, the duct wasn't metal anymore. It was smooth, white, endless, and wrong. I climbed until my shoulders vanished into the brightness. The world below me dropped away like I'd pushed through the surface of a pond. The house was gone. I stood in a hallway that matched ours exactly. Same paint, same frames, same scuff on the baseboard. But everything gleamed like it had been wiped from existence and freshly printed again. Every photo frame held blank white paper. Every light was on, though there were no bulbs. "Jonah!" I shouted. My voice didn't echo, just kept going like sound without walls. I ran room to room. Jonah's bedroom was here too, but the bed was perfectly made. The rocket stickers were in place, only reversed, mirrored. Their colors just a little wrong. The blues too bright, the reds too cold. Something moved behind me. I turned, and there he was. He looked like Jonah, but not tired Jonah. Not the kid who left crumbs in his sheets and drawings half finished on the floor. This one was clean, pressed, perfect. His eyes reflected everything and nothing. "Dad," he said with a calm that didn't belong to him. They fixed the numbers. Behind him, the window showed the cul-de-sac, but reversed. The houses stood in perfect order, unblemished. Every lawn was identical. Every mailbox shining like trophies. "Where's your mother?" I asked. "She's home," he said. "In the old version." He tilted his head. "You don't belong there anymore." "Come with me," I said. He smiled politely the way Linda smiled when she handed me the first violation notice. "This is my home now." "They said you'd say that, though. They said you'd try to take me out of alignment." "Who said that?" "The board," he answered simply, like it was obvious. "The ones who remember how to keep things perfect." He walked past me toward the stairs that led to where the front door should be. I followed. But when we reached the door, there was no porch, only the other neighborhood stretching out, a mirror copy of ours under a sky that didn't move. People walked identical dogs. Cars drove by in loops. Everything repeated with microscopic precision, like the universe had been compressed into a screensaver. At the far end of the street, the community room's windows glowed gold. Inside, shadows of people sat around a long table. They weren't moving. "Linda's waiting," Jonah said. "Then let's go talk to her." He led me through the perfect street. I could feel the pavement through my shoes. It was warm, like a circuit board under load. The air hummed softly, a steady 60-cycle note, the frequency of American electricity. As we walked, a mail truck passed us. Its logo wasn't USPS. It was Maple and Maple Property Records Division. The driver smiled and waved. The same face as the neighbor across the street. The same face as Paul, copied and reused. When we reached the community room, Jonah stopped at the steps. "She'll fix you," he said. "It doesn't hurt." Jonah listened to me. "You're not broken." He shook his head gently like a teacher correcting a slow student. "Everyone is a little. That's why they built the other one." He went inside. I followed. The board table gleamed under a perfect white light. Linda sat at the center, clipboard resting in front of her, fingers interlaced. Around her, the others smiled the thin, professional smiles of people whose job descriptions were written by software. "Mr. Fielding," Linda said. "Welcome back. What is this?" "Continuity," she said. "The county normalized your parcel, remember?" We simply obeyed. But it turns out some residents resist correction, so we keep both versions until the record settles. "You took my son," she tilted her head. "He's not taken. He's preserved. The original will fade, but this one will last forever. No illness, no decay, no confusion. That's what everyone wants when they move to Willow Ridge. Permanence." She slid a document toward me across the table. It was my deed, only mirrored, the text reversed left to right. My signature looked perfect, except my hand was still holding the pen that had signed it. "Sign again," she said. "So both copies match." I laughed, because sometimes laughter is the only thing the body does before it breaks. "You think I'm giving you my name twice?" She sighed, almost tender. "Mark, you already did. When you started labeling everything, when you taught the house to remember you, it remembered too well. The system copied what you built." On the wall behind her, a display lit up. A map of Willow Ridge. 2 layers overlapped, the real and the mirror. Parcels flickered between them like playing cards being shuffled. Ours 403 glowed red. "Delete the copy," I said. "That's not possible," she said. "We can only align. Then I'll unalign it." I pulled the blank tile from my pocket and threw it onto the table. The moment it hit, the lights dimmed. Linda's face flickered, glitching between her calm smile and a frozen frame of fear. The other board members blurred, their edges turning to static. Jonah screamed behind me. A real human scream, not the calm voice of the copy. I turned. My real son stood in the doorway, barefoot, eyes wet, reaching out. "Dad!" I ran to him, grabbed his shoulders. His skin was warm, solid. The glow behind him, our real house, was collapsing. Light bleeding through cracks in the mirror world like water through plaster. Linda rose, shouting something that broke apart mid-word. Her clipboard turned translucent, letters bleeding into air. "You can't exist twice," she said. "Then we'll choose once," I told her. I lifted Jonah into my arms and ran. The hallway behind us folded, rooms flattening into white sheets of static. The street outside tilted upward, the sky bending down to meet it. Every house peeled back into raw code and vanished. We reached the edge where the cul-de-sac should end. A faint shimmer waited, the barrier between this world and the real one. Behind us, Linda's voice echoed, more synthetic now than human. "Mark, unfinished records will corrupt the archive." "Good," I said, and stepped through. The world blinked. I was lying on my front lawn, grass damp under my palms. The air smelled real again, Dirt, dust, sunrise. Ava was kneeling beside me, crying. Jonah between us, clutching my shirt. The house behind us looked battered but real. Not perfect. One shutter crooked, paint chipped where the number plate had fallen off. Only one number remained. 3. Ava touched it. "Where's the 4? I looked down. The brass 4 lay in the dirt by my hand, half buried. I picked it up and pressed it against the wall. It stuck, no nails, no glue. The light inside the house flickered once and steadied. Jonah exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. We stood together in the morning quiet until a sound broke it, the faint whir of a golf cart. Linda's cart, but when it rounded the corner, it was empty. The clipboard lay on the seat, pages fluttering in the wind. I walked over and picked it up. Every page was blank except the last one. A single sentence in gray ink. Phase 2 canceled. Record inconsistent. Underneath, a new line formed as I watched. The letters appearing one by one. Residence, Fielding family, active, and then, smaller, almost invisible. Witness 1 remaining. I looked back at the house. The upstairs window. For just a second, I saw us. Ava, Jonah, me. Standing exactly where we were, mirrored in faint light. Then the reflection blinked and vanished. The street was quiet again. No workers, no humming, no perfect lawns. Just a cul-de-sac that looked tired in the honest way old neighborhoods do. That night, when Jonah fell asleep, I went outside. The mailbox flag was down. The numbers gleamed dull in the porch light. 403. I touched the metal, half expecting it to be warm again. It was cool, steady, like something that had decided to stay put. Across the street, the empty lot was just dirt. Real dirt, I could smell it. But when the wind shifted, I thought I heard it. Soft, mechanical breathing. The hum of something that wasn't finished learning how to stop. I looked at my phone. No service. Battery at 100%. The notifications tray, a single unread message with no sender. Alignment complete. Thank you for your compliance. I deleted it. The message reappeared. I deleted it again. It stayed gone. When I turned to go back inside, I noticed the new street sign gleaming under the lamplight. It didn't say Larkspur Trace anymore. The letters had been replaced with something plainer. Fielding Lane. Ava laughed softly behind me when she saw it. Maybe they finally got something right, she said. Maybe, I answered, but I didn't believe it. As we went in, I caught one last reflection in the door glass. Our house standing solid and warm behind us, and, just for an instant, another house above it. Faint as breath on glass, waiting for the next record to update. Then the porch light flickered once, twice, and held steady.